Welcome back. This is The Law Show. It's sponsored every week at this time by the law firm Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson. Our law firm specializes in cases that involve serious accidental injury and wrongful death cases. And those are cases where loved ones, people are killed in serious accidents. Our firm has practiced across Northwest Florida for 40 years. And during those 40 years, we have opted to focus almost entirely on accidental injury cases. We're trial lawyers. We are board certified in civil trial law, and that is a type of board certification recognized by the Florida Bar for lawyers that do this sort of personal injury practice. And we're proud to host the Law Show every week at this time, where we hope we provide helpful information about topics that we deal with week in and week out, and we answer questions that you present to us. And in this kind of modern age, we can do it by text. And so our main number across Northwest Florida, across the Panhandle, is 850-444-4444. And you can text us this morning at that number, 850, and then it's all fours. If you have a comment or a question about the show today, you can also email me directly at my email address, which is mike.mcleod@kerrigan.com. So email us or text us if you have a question or comment about today's show. And so I want to talk about a somewhat new a resource that we can use when we investigate serious automobile accidents. So traditionally, and we still use these methods, of course, when we're hired by someone who's injured in an accident, we will immediately want to investigate and document how the accident happened. And we do that through traditional means. Our investigators look for witnesses, and witnesses can come from people in other automobiles who see the accident. They can come from passengers in one or more of the vehicles that are involved in the accident. In today's world, people at businesses, bystanders, sometimes see accidents and can testify about who ran the light, who was at fault, how fast were certain vehicles going at the time of the accident. And those are somewhat traditional ways that for years and years we have investigated and put together exactly how accidents occur. Another thing that is somewhat more traditional than what I want to talk about in just a few minutes are using knowledgeable experts, engineers who have special training and experience in helping us recreate accidents. And some of the simpler things that they do are things like they can measure the coefficient of friction of certain asphalt roadways to see how much they grip tires when they brake, and they come up with a calculation for that. They can measure skid marks from tires that are left on the road after a vehicle puts on their brakes hard and skids to a stop, and they can use formulas to try and determine, well, how fast was this car going, depending on the length of the skid mark, how hard the braking was, the coefficient of friction of the asphalt roadways. Also, some experts can examine, for example, seat belts to see whether or not there's a certain tension on the belt and give an opinion about whether or not the occupant of that seat in the automobile was wearing their seat belt. But today, in today's world, we also have this terrific resource, and that is called an electronic data recorder. And so automobiles really since the year 2000, most of them, not all of them, but most of them have an electronic data recorder embedded into the center of the automobile. Typically it's under the front seat or between the two front seats. And it's underneath, I guess you'd call that center console. And the electronic data recorder, sometimes we call it the black box of the automobile, was originally introduced by General Motors. And so ever since maybe it's 2010, I would say almost 100% of automobiles in America have electronic data recorders on all of these vehicles. And so we can extract the information that these black boxes, and they're really very similar. They're not as sophisticated as an airplane black box. When an airplane crashes, technicians can retrieve the black box of an airplane and recover all sorts of data. Well, in today's computer world, we can do almost the same thing with your automobile, with all automobiles that are in serious collisions. It's required now that technicians with sufficient training to extract the information from the black box, the electronic data recorder after an accident. Florida Highway Patrol officers, some of them have the capability of extracting this information, and they do in serious accidents when they are not sure exactly how an accident happens. So they can extract this information from the black box after a serious accident, and then on a computer they can read all sorts of information and data about how the accident happened. For example, the black box recorder will tell us exactly the speed of this particular vehicle at the time of the collision. And we don't have to rely on eyewitnesses who are sometimes wrong about the speed or their estimates about the speed. Over the years, we hear people say, well, I think they were going the speed limit. I think they were going over the speed limit. I don't know exactly how much, or this car was going really fast. And those are helpful, but the black box information will tell us the exact speed a vehicle was going at the point of impact. It will also tell us the percentage of acceleration on the accelerator pedal at the time of an accident. For example, a computer printout will tell us that 5 seconds before the accident, the accelerator was pressed at 50%. It'll tell us the RPMs of a vehicle. We had a horrible accident that we were involved in investigating with really severe and dire consequences for the occupants, that we were able to obtain this information, and we found that the driver of the at-fault vehicle, who was driving through municipal streets, not out on a highway, but in an in-town area, had the accelerator pedal pressed all the way to the floor well before the collision, well before the impact with a telephone pole, all the way up to the impact with a telephone pole. And we knew precisely that the pedal was pressed all the way to the floor, 100% acceleration. And the speed and recklessness of that driver is no doubt what caused that severe accident. The electronic data recorder will also tell us the direction of impact of the crash. Is it a head-on collision? Is it a side impact? Is it an angular impact? It'll tell us the precise direction of the force of the other vehicle or the other thing that the car impacted. In a rollover accident, the electronic data recorder will tell us the angle of the rollover. I'm checking my notes here because there's so many things that the recorders will tell us after an accident. And this can be very important. The data recorder can also tell us which of the front seat occupants were wearing their seat belts. It'll be recorded on the recorder. And why is this important? In Florida, if you're injured in an accident in your automobile and you were not wearing your seatbelt, a jury can put fault on you for contributing to your own injuries. We know that seatbelts save lives. We know that seatbelts limit injuries. And so juries and insurance representatives can penalize, as far as recovery for the injured person, those plaintiffs, those people that are injured, for not wearing a seatbelt. Florida is what we call a comparative negligence state. And that means that when we analyze who's at fault in an accident, or when juries assess fault in an accident, juries don't have to find one party 100% at fault and the other not at fault at all. They can compare fault. It's done in almost every trial. And so even though another vehicle runs a red light and hits you and injures you, if you don't have your seatbelt on in Florida, as you're required to have, a jury can put some fault on you for your own injuries, even though the other person was at fault in causing the accident. So the electronic data recorder can tell us whether or not either of the front seat passengers were wearing the seatbelt. It can also tell us the angle of the steering wheel. All of these things can be critically important in determining a complicated accident, and whether or not our client was completely without fault, who was at fault. All of these things are accessible now from investigators that are trained and authorized to download this sort of information. So in today's world, we very quickly, after we're hired in an accident, when somebody's been injured in an accident, we want our investigators to do the traditional types of things that we've done for many, many years. Look for witnesses, look at businesses and storefronts to see if there's some video running, 24-hour surveillance video. In many of our cases, we've been able to find store videos from cameras that run 24 hours a day, and we've been able to obtain video of the accident itself. Not so uncommon in today's world, where you can just present your client's case with an actual video of the accident, which sometimes shows who's got the light. Not uncommon at all. But it takes some footwork early in the case before things get erased and people forget what they saw. And then the second thing in serious accidents we can do is get all of this specific information from electronic data recorders that will tell us without any question exactly a lot of these details about accidents. We're out of time for this segment of the show. I'm Mike McLeod. It's our pleasure to host the Law Show every week at this time. All of the lawyers with Kerrigan, Estes, Rankin, McLeod, and Thompson. And we'll be back in just a minute with more of the show. Thanks for watching.